I am super excited to share this book by Patrick Lencioni on the 5 dysfunctions of a team. In this video, we are going to do an in-depth examination of these dysfunctions, and then we're going to talk about how to build functional, cohesive, and high-achieving teams within your organization. So let's get started. In the book, Patrick Lencioni states that if you could get all the people in the organization rowing in the same direction, you could dominate any industry in any market against any competition at any time. How might we go about constructing and cultivating functional, cohesive teams so that everyone in our organization can row in the same direction? First, let's examine the benefits of functional teams and team cohesion. Then, we'll pivot to do an in-depth examination of the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And finally, we'll conclude with ideas on how to improve team cohesion. As we know, functional teams and team cohesion can be a major competitive advantage for a company. It improves decision-making and increases productivity. It enables teams to innovate, generates new ideas, and find solutions to complex problems. It improves customer satisfaction and contributes to the company's bottom line. It increases employee engagement, which leads to higher morale, better performance, and achieve better results than the competitors. And finally, higher employee engagement helps build a positive work culture that attracts and retains top talent. Now that we understand the benefits of functional, cohesive teams, let's do an in-depth exploration of the 5 dysfunctions from the book. Starting at the base of the pyramid is the absence of trust. When there's absence of trust, it creates an atmosphere of suspicion, which hinders open and honest communication and cooperation. When there's absence of trust, that leads to a fear of conflict, where team members avoid conflicts and incapable of engaging in open and unfiltered debates and dialogues. Without healthy conflict, it leads to a lack of commitment, where team members find it difficult to buy in and commit to decisions. When there's lack of commitment, team members avoid accountability and hesitate to hold one another accountable. When team members aren't held accountable, they tend to put their own needs ahead of the team's collective goals and results, and the business ultimately suffers. Let's compare and contrast key characteristics between dysfunctional and functional teams. Starting with the absence of trust. Trust is at the heart of a functioning, cohesive team. Without trust, teamwork is impossible. When there's absence of trust, team members are reluctant to be vulnerable with one another. This unwillingness to be vulnerable with team members prevents the building of trust within the team. Vulnerables include weaknesses, skill deficiencies, interpersonal shortcomings, and mistakes. As we see here, in a dysfunctional team, team members tend to not trust one another, and they tend to conceal their weaknesses and mistakes. They hesitate to ask for help or offer to provide constructive feedback. They expend an inordinate amount of time and energy managing their behaviors and interactions within the group. They're very competitive with their peers and protective of their reputation, instead of recognizing and tapping into each other's skills and expertise. Conversely, in a functional and trusting team, team members are more willing to admit their weaknesses and mistakes. They are quick to offer and accept apologies. They ask for help and take risk in offering feedback and assistance. They focus their energy and attention completely on the job at hand rather than on being strategically disingenuous or political with one another. They believe that their colleagues' intentions are good and there is no reason to be protective or careful around the group. Instead of competing with their peers, they appreciate and tap into each other's skills and expertise. When there's the fear of conflict, team members tend to hold back their opinions in order to preserve artificial harmony within the group. They worry more about politics and personal risk management rather than solving problems, which produces inferior decisions as a result. By building trust, a team makes conflict possible because team members do not hesitate to engage in passionate and sometimes emotional ideological debate, knowing that they will not be criticized or reprimanded for saying something that might be construed as destructive or critical. Productive ideological conflict is about debating on important concepts, ideas, and issues without residual feelings or collateral damage. It's not about personality focus and mean-spirited attacks. In a dysfunctional team, team members often hesitate to engage in ideological conflict in order to avoid hurting other members' feelings. There's tension, but there's almost no constructive conflict. Team members are passive-aggressive. They often turn to back-channel personal attacks. They revisit issues again and again without resolution because team members ignore controversial issues that are essential to the team's success. In a functional and trusting team, politics and back-channel attacks are minimized. And team members focus on discussing and solving real problems that are critical to the team's success. When teams become conflict-avoidant, a fear of failure develops within the group. When this happens, team members have difficulty making decisions and committing to decisions. They tend to second-guess themselves. Some teams get paralyzed by their need for complete agreement and their inability to move beyond debate. Note that getting commitment doesn't mean that there needs to be complete consensus. If everyone really agrees on something and consensus comes about quickly and naturally, that's fantastic. However, if consensus becomes an attempt to please everyone, then it turns into displeasing everyone equally. Most reasonable people understand that they don't always get their way in a discussion, but they just need to be heard. Know that their input was considered and responded to. Team members can disagree about something and still commit to a plan as though everyone originally bought into the decision completely. When there's lack of commitment, it creates an environment where ambiguity prevails. There's the fear of failure. Team members have difficulty making decisions and committing to decisions, as we talked about earlier. In a functional and trusting team, there's clear direction and priority that aligns with the team's common objectives. Team members experiment and learn fast from mistakes without the fear of failure. They are adaptable and agile and can pivot direction without hesitation or guilt. When team members are not committed to the team's goals and objectives, it can lead to a lack of follow-through, a lack of ownership of team's work, and of course, a lack of accountability. When there's avoidance of accountability, team members resent one another, especially when there's disparity in standards of performance. Team members tend to miss deadlines and key deliverables. Even when they meet the deadlines, they deliver mediocre work at best. When this happens, it places a heavy burden on the team leader as the sole source of discipline. Conversely, in a functional and trusting team, there is respect among team members because everyone is held to the same high standards. Team members work together to identify potential problems, and they don't hesitate to question each other's intentions and approaches. There's little tolerance for mediocrity and poor performance because everyone enables and expects each other to perform and meet the team's high standards. And finally, when team members hold each other accountable, the team leader spends less time addressing performance management issues and corrective actions. The ultimate dysfunction is the inattention to results. When individuals aren't held accountable, and if a team has lost sight of the need for achievement, then naturally some team members will put their own needs like ego, career development, recognition, and so forth ahead of the collective goals of the team. This salient point from the book encapsulates the last dysfunction. No matter how good an individual on the team might be feeling about his or her situation, if the team loses, everyone loses. When teams lack focus and clear objectives, team members become stagnated. They become easily distracted, and they focus more attention on their personal goals than achieving the team's collective results. Whereas in a functional and trusting team, team members feel challenged and the team likely to retain high-performing and achievement-oriented team members. Team members work together to achieve the collective team's goals and objectives instead of a bunch of individuals focusing on enhancing their own egos and advancing their personal goals. Again, these are the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Starting at the base of the pyramid is the absence of trust, fear of conflict, the lack of commitment, avoidance of accountability, and finally, the inattention to results. Let's now turn our attention to ideas for help building and fostering functional and cohesive teams. Keep in mind that this book was published in 2002, so some of the ideas here may not align with your organization's culture. We know that invulnerability contributes to the absence of trust. How do we go from an invulnerability work environment to a vulnerability-based trust one? The first idea is the personal histories exercise. This is a low-risk exercise that encourages team members to share relatively innocuous personal stories and experiences in a team meeting setting. This exercise helps team members to form personal connections and view one another as colleagues with life stories and interesting backgrounds. This encourages greater empathy and understanding and discourages unfair and inaccurate behavioral attributions. Next is the team effectiveness exercise. The risk level for this exercise may be slightly elevated. It requires some degree of trust in order for it to work. It requires team members to identify and share the single most important contribution that each person makes to the team, as well as an area that they must either improve upon or eliminate for the good of the team. Finally, there's the personalities and behavioral preference profiles, such as DISC. It can be effective at building trust on a team. By understanding our colleagues' personality profiles, it can help enhance communication and trust. What can a leader do to help overcome the absence of trust? The team leader can inspire and foster trust by demonstrating vulnerability first. This requires that a leader risks losing face in front of the team, so that the team members feel safe to take the same risk themselves. Followed by, the team leader must create an environment that does not punish vulnerability. In this way, team members feel psychologically safe and confident that their respective vulnerabilities will not be used against them. So, how do we move from an artificial harmony atmosphere to a one where it promotes productive ideological conflict, where team members are encouraged to have unfiltered, passionate debate about key issues? Effective teams have substantial level of debate. If they don't trust one another, then they aren't going to engage in open, constructive, and ideological conflict. The first idea is to implement a rotating minor of conflict role, whereby a team member is assigned to extract buried, unresolved disagreements within the team and call out sensitive issues and force team members to work through them. This requires a degree of objectivity and commitment to staying with the conflict until it is resolved. Also, in this process, we need to permit real-time coaching as part of the mining of conflict process. As a conflict miner, it is important to remind participants who are engaged in the conflict not to retreat from healthy debates. When the debate becomes uncomfortable with a level of discord, remind team members that what they are doing is necessary and it's good for them and it's good for the team and not something to avoid in the future. From a team leader standpoint, team leader can promote healthy conflict by demonstrating restraint when team members are engaged in a conflict and allow resolution to occur naturally. This can be challenging because a team leader may feel the need to protect team members from harm and feel like they need to be in control. But by premature interruption of the disagreement, the leader prevents team members from developing coping skills for dealing with conflict and depriving the participants an opportunity to develop conflict management skills. And finally, it's essential for the team leader to personally model appropriate conflict behavior. By avoiding conflict when it is necessary and productive, the team leader enables this dysfunction to thrive and perpetuate. Next, how do we move from an ambiguity culture where there's strong desire for consensus and the need for certainty to the one where the team's objectives and plan of actions are clear with strong members' commitment and buy-in? The first idea is to start with the cascading messaging. At the end of each team meeting, team explicitly reviews any key decisions made and agrees on what needs to be communicated to the staff and stakeholders about those decisions. In this way, everyone is clear on the decisions and outcomes. Additionally, this ensures that everyone received consistent and non-conflicting information. The best strategy for ensuring commitment is to use clear deadlines for when decisions will be made and honor those dates with discipline and rigor. A team that struggles with commitment can discuss contingency and worst-case scenario upfront to allow them to reduce their fears by helping them realize that the cost of an inaccurate or incorrect decision may be far less damaging than what they had imagined. The leader can help build commitment by first being comfortable with the prospect of making a decision that ultimately turns out to be wrong. Also, the team leader can push and challenge the team for closure around issues, as well as adherence to schedules that the team agreed to. Next, how do we enable team members to hold each other accountable and move from a low standard to a high standard environment? The first idea is to publish goals and standards in the open and clarify publicly exactly what the team needs to achieve, who needs to deliver what, and how everyone must behave in order to succeed. This is a great way to enable accountability. Next, by implementing structure that enables team members to communicate regularly, discuss progress, and give feedback on their behavior or performance. If you're looking for ways to enhance accountability, by the way, this is not in the book. This is just an addition that I thought might be helpful to help with visibility and transparency. Then perhaps integrating Scrum. It's an agile way of managing work with a built-in continuous inspection, which again can improve visibility of work assignments and transparency. The team leader should encourage and enable team to serve as the first and primary accountability mechanism. Sometimes a strong leader naturally creates accountability vacuum within the team, leaving themselves as the only source of discipline. This creates an environment where team members assume that the leader is holding others accountable, and so they hold back even when they see something that isn't right. We know that the pursuit of individual goals and personal status erodes the focus on collective success. So, how do we go from the pursuit of individual goals and personal status, such as power, position, and prestige, to an environment where team members focus on achieving the collective results and goals of the team? The first idea is to publicly declare the team's results. The premise here is that teams that are willing to commit publicly to specific results are more likely to work more passionately toward achieving those results. And one of the effective ways to ensure that team members focus their attention on results is to tie their rewards to team's achievements and or specific outcomes. However, the caveat here is that relying on financial incentives alone can be problematic because it assumes that financial motivation is the sole driver of behavior. We don't want to reward someone for just trying hard, even in the absence of results. This may send a wrong message that achieving the outcome may not be important after all. Therefore, we need to make sure that rewarding and enforcing achievement to the outcome is pivotal. What can a leader do to overcome the inattention to results? The leader must set the tone for a focus on results. If the team members sense that the leader values anything other than the results, they will take that as permission to do the same for themselves. And finally, the team leader must be selfless and objective and reserve rewards and recognitions for those who make real contributions to the achievement of the team's goals and results. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you find it helpful. Please add your comments, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe. Until next time, take care.